Thanks for choosing me to be your mom.
Welcome back to Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness reunited us with Billy and Tommy Maximoff, the superpowered twins that we last saw in WandaVision. Now this time we get to see the boys in an alternate reality, living happy lives with their loving mom. But that got me thinking, why don't we have a real Billy and Tommy in the MCU when they're clearly existing out there in every other universe? Now in the comics, Billy and Tommy grow up to be the superheroes Wiccan and Speed. And for years now we've thought that they would end up as those heroes in the MCU. But since those kids no longer exist in Earth 616, does that mean that Marvel scrapped those plans? Well, not necessarily. Here's how I think the MCU will bring back the twins, leading to a Young Avengers movie. Now first, we have to sort out exactly what these kids are and where they came from. In the comics run Vision and Scarlet Witch, twins Thomas and William were supposedly born to Vision and Wanda Maximoff, and they were delivered by Dr. Stephen Strange. But in actuality, these twins were actually born from an amalgamation between Wanda's hex powers and slivers of Mephisto's essence. Wanda gave them life, but parts of Mephisto made up their souls. After a big fight, Mephisto reabsorbed the boys with some help from Master Pandemonium, and that removed the twins from reality. Now, Agatha Harkness then had to put a spell on Wanda to make her forget that her children ever existed.
I have to kiss you and make you forget.
Now then, years later in the comic book Avengers Disassembled, Wanda suddenly remembers her kids, and subconsciously she starts to dismantle the Avengers by killing them off and having all their enemies attack them at once. Essentially, Multiverse of Madness was an adaptation of this series. Then House of M was another comic series which showed not just that Wanda was powerful, but that she has a strong attachment to her children. In House of M, Wanda rewrote reality to create a world where mutants reigned supreme, and where her twin sons were alive. So the show WandaVision drew heavy inspiration from the comic Vision and the Scarlet Witch and House of M. Wanda sets up her own pocket reality after being in a fragile mental state and creates her dream home with Vision in New Jersey. But instead of using Mephisto's essence, Wanda seems to have just created the boys from her own chaos magic. But they can only exist within the hex that Wanda created.
You tied your family to this twisted world, and now one can't exist without the other.
Now, it's interesting that in the comics, Wanda could only provide life for the boys, but they needed a piece of Mephisto to have souls. But in WandaVision, they seem to have souls already without traces of Mephisto. Or do they? The boys laugh, they cry, they feel fear, all things that a person would need a soul to experience. So this brings us back to the important question, what are these kids? Are they pieces of the Darkhold or something? Probably not. In WandaVision, we see the Darkhold originally in Agatha's lair. Now remember, Agatha didn't live in Westview and therefore didn't exist in the Hex to begin with. She was drawn by the sheer intensity of Wanda's power. She brought the Darkhold with her and kept it safe in her little moldy, tiny witch lair.
I sensed this place. The afterglow of so many spells cast all at once.
Now Wanda didn't even know what the Darkhold was.
I'm not a witch. I don't cast spells. No one taught me magic.
Wanda only started experimenting with black magic after Agatha informed her about the Darkhold and her Scarlet Witch identity. So the kids are not pieces of the Darkhold. So could the kids actually just be Vision and Wanda's biological children? I mean, we did see her become pregnant and give birth in the second and third episodes. Could they really just be half witch, half synthezoid?
I thought you said Friday afternoon.
I didn't consider that the timings between developmental benchmarks could be quite random.
I mean, look, I'm no expert in magical being, synthetic person relationships, but I don't think that's right either. So to understand what in the heck these kids are, we have to think about why Billy and Tommy physically exist in other universes, but not in the 616. We see Billy and Tommy throughout multiple universes with Wanda, insinuating that in almost every other life, Wanda got what she wanted, her two boys. This is regardless if she was the Scarlet Witch or not. Now, by the way Captain Marvel said, "We're not worried about your little witch," I'm going to presume that either the Scarlet Witch entity isn't as big of a threat in Earth 838 universe, or more than likely, there is no Scarlet Witch in the Earth 838. Wanda probably just has the Mind Stone power that she was given by Hydra. But in these other universes, there's one important person missing, the Vision, the dad figure.
The world's only vibranium synthezoid playing Father Knows Best in suburbia.
In the MCU, Wanda's creation of her perfect Westview was because of her grief-stricken loss of the Vision.
I wanted him back. I wanted him back.
So it was a little strange to see her in other realities with no Vision. His absence is conspicuous since the house in the 838 universe was the same house that Wanda created in WandaVision, and that property was bought for her by the Vision. But just because Wanda's living in this house doesn't mean that Vision existed in this reality. Vision bought her a plot of land, but Wanda designed her ideal sitcom house. Hell, she created the house before she manifested Vision, and she designed the interior of the home, might I say very fashionably, according to the decades that go by. So, we don't think that Vision even exists in the 838 universe. For instance, the Ultron bots work, meaning that the evil AI never rebelled. If Ultron never rebels, then he doesn't create Vision to be his perfect new body. In our Doctor Strange 2 Plot Holes Explained video, we suggested that maybe the 616 universe could be the only reality where Vision ever existed. Wanda seems well adjusted in other universes with her boys. She can't go crazy over the loss of Vision if there was never a Vision to begin with. But again, if there was no Vision in the 838 universe, how do Billy and Tommy exist? They wouldn't be half synthezoid. Well, as we established in the comics, they weren't technically half synthezoid either. Wanda manifested them with her hex powers and some interference magic from Mephisto. In WandaVision, she just manifested Vision himself without needing his actual physical body.
We'll never be able to cover this up.
I won't have to. Wanda canceled her show, so there's no footage proving there was ever more than one Vision.
So she doesn't need a body to create life, and she doesn't need any other dark magic to create their souls. Wanda's powers can manipulate probability and rewrite reality. It just takes a big toll on her physically and emotionally. So 838 Wanda could have just imagined her boys into existence. Maybe she had help from her Avengers or the Illuminati or her Doctor Strange, or she could have just had the kids with someone else. In fact, here's a side theory. We just put out a video that talked about Wanda's connection to the multiverse in other movies, where we theorized that the Scarlet Witch entity is connected to the multiverse and showed the Avengers glimpses of other realities in Age of Ultron. So, what if Wanda used this connection to see her kids in another reality? Then, she subconsciously created kids inside the Hex that looked like her boys in other universes. So, maybe the boys are her biological kids out in the multiverse, and the 616 is the only universe where they are not real. See, in the MCU, Wanda created the boys inside the Hex. And as we saw, the Hex is very flimsy magic. It takes energy and concentration for Wanda to uphold the Hex and create actual human life. She couldn't even control the entirety of Westview during the Halloween fair. The people at the outskirts were still buffering.
These people near the edge of town, they're barely moving.
But the lives she did create in the Hex were technically real. Monica Rambeau even says it herself.
Oh, Wanda's twins are hers. Everything might look fake in the TV, but everything in there is real.
MCU Wanda is a Nexus being. Now, for those of you who don't know, a Nexus being is someone who is so important that they can affect the time stream of that universe. Every reality has a Nexus being. Possibly, Nexus beings in the MCU could also be people who have the biggest effect on reality. That would make sense for a being who could just manifest life with her magic.
You can fix anything, Mom. Fix it dead.
In the comics, Nexus beings have another important attribute. Their children have the potential to be even more powerful, and they can remake the cosmos. And so far in the MCU, Billy and Tommy are incredibly powerful. We saw them age themselves up because they wanted a puppy, but then they developed their own superpowers to get more candy during trick or treat.
They've got full-size candy bars a few blocks up. Mom, can we go? Next stop, Cavity Town.
I think their souls are so powerful that they would be hard to dissipate even when the Hex collapsed. Heck, even inside the Hex, Billy and Tommy were the two people that Wanda could not control.
Kids. Can't control them.
If they were technically more powerful than Wanda, then they wouldn't necessarily need her Hex to still be alive, which is where I think the MCU will follow the comic storyline of what happened after Billy and Tommy disappeared. Their essence just transferred, thus reincarnating Billy and Tommy under different biological parents and becoming orphans. Now think about it. You all asked, why didn't Wanda just look for a reality where Billy and Tommy were orphans? I mean, in an infinite multiverse, there has to be at least one version where her kids actually needed a mom. Wanda could have just become the mom of those variants and everybody would have been happy. Well, what if our current MCU actually is that universe? What if there are orphans somewhere out there in the MCU imbued with the essence of Billy and Tommy the moment the Hex came down around Westview? After all, one interpretation of souls is that they're just energy that can't be destroyed, just transferred. This will be the reintroduction of Billy and Tommy. So in the comics, William and Thomas Maximoff are reincarnated as Billy Kaplan and Tommy Shepard, born to different families. They each discover their respective powers. Billy is a magic mage and Tommy is a speedster. They join the superhero group the Young Avengers Avengers and are redubbed as Wiccan and Speed. In the Young Avengers comics, Billy says the Scarlet Witch never had children, and the Super Skrull says, according to Skrull intelligence, she did. Twin boys, Thomas and William. So, Earth 616 would be our timeline where Wanda, as the Scarlet Witch, didn't have biological children. Instead, the souls she manifested attached themselves to two new orphans, reincarnating them under two different families. In the comics, the Young Avengers were formed by young King the Conqueror, known as Iron Lad, escaping his future self. The Avengers Mansion was abandoned after Scarlet Witch's breakdown, so Iron Lad accesses an AI of Vision programmed with a list of young heroes related to the Avengers. The Young Avengers take on every mission available, all while discovering more about their past and powers. I bet Billy Kaplan and Tommy Shepard will be introduced as teenagers who were adopted at birth. Now they'll have to figure out that they're actually twins and go find their mother and father. A real Twitches situation, if you know what I mean. And that would lead us to the gathering of the Young Avengers. We already have Kate Bishop locked and loaded, Cassie Lang has a way in, Patriot was in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and we could see Hawkling with Secret Invasion. In fact, it would be extra cool if they tried to merge the MCU with the comic storyline and had Monica Rambeau confirm to the twins that they are indeed Wanda's kids. Wanda definitely isn't dead at the end of Doctor Strange.
No one's ever really gone.
And White Vision is still flying around somewhere out there with his retained memories. Maybe with Aunt Monica and even Agatha's help, they could get Wanda and the Vision to see each other again, making their own little parent trap. This is also a really good way to introduce a young Nathaniel Richards, aka Iron Lad, aka Kang the Conqueror. After Sylvie kills He Who Remains, we see the different realities branching off the sacred timeline and Kang taking control of the TVA. So Kang is here and he's coming to rule every timeline. This is where Iron Lad can come to Earth 616, protecting not only himself, but the entire universe with the help of his friends, the Young Avengers. So, Billy and Tommy are not done in the MCU. They can come back to the multiverse, they can come back through magic, or maybe Wanda will be alive and actually find a way to bring them to life in the MCU. But I want to know your theories about this down in the comments below, or you can @me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.